Hello everyone and welcome back to Dawn of War 3 once again. This time, however, this will be a little bit different. It's going to be a bit of a critique video. Basically, me being a content creator for this game, the replay system is of particular interest, and I do kind of admit that most people won't touch the replay system in their time playing Dawn of War 3. But for the people who do, and in general for the quality of the overall product, of the overall game, I figured that offering some feedback on this kind of really cool feature in really any multiplayer game seems to be a pretty cool thing to do for this very new game, as whilst it has just come out, there's still time to kind of offer critiques so that future patches can be as impactful and as positive as possible. So I'm going to be critiquing the replay system. So if you're just watching what I just did, you might see the first critique I might have of it. It's that when you mouse over and select one of your replays, it actually wipes the name, which you can see there. I've got Clean Orc 1v1 Truck into Knobs. That's what I named that particular replay. And it's 1v1 Port Sandaris. It's all good. That's all fine and dandy. And then you select another replay, and the names, scenarios, and dates, how it's categorizing these, they all get wiped. So you see it doesn't come back if you deselect them. They're stuck there without a name. So you've basically got to remember the position of your replay. Imagine if I had 10 replays and I clicked on one and they all got wiped with their names. That could really be a problem for people who really use this system. Therefore, it probably is something that needs to be fixed. Now you can reset it essentially if you click off onto any of these other tabs in the main menu, or if you simply go into another learner tab with codex, training, one of those, go back into replays, and the names and all of the information that you really need is once again back there, which is fantastic. But yeah, this shouldn't be an issue really. This seems like quite a basic thing. You select something and, you know, everything else gets bugged up. So that's a bug. Naturally, that is something that just needs to be patched. It's not a major thing, but it is definitely something that does need to be fixed. So let's get right into the game proper, and hopefully, for the purposes of demonstration, I will be able to show another bug. And okay, this seems to be working fine actually. So another bug that does happen in the replay system is that when you load into and when you get into a game, the doctrines and elites can get really messed up. So I can vouch for these being the correct doctrines. These were the doctrines that I were playing with, and I'll just remove the fog of war so we can see the entire match. There you go. But if we swap over to the Eldar player's perspective, now that doesn't seem right. Last time I checked, Eldar could not access Space Marine doctrines, and again this is just another visual bug, similar to the names and information preloading into an actual replay being all skew if as soon as you select one of them. This does need to be fixed, really. For viewer information, if I was using the replay system and the doctrines were completely out of whack, then that's just feeding false information to the viewers and possibly confusing them if they're trying to get into the game. So yeah, this is another bug that quite clearly does need to be fixed. And the only other bug, so I'm covering all the bugs first, the only other bug that I can really lay claim to having seen is the replay system. After a while, if you save in your replay, sometimes it wipes old replays without your permission. So you do have the manual option of selecting one of the replays in your saved replay folder and deleting them in-game, which, you know, is cool. You can manage your replays, which ones you've used and which ones you want to ditch. But yeah, it occasionally just randomly deletes some of your old replays, which again is just another thing that quite clearly is not working as intended, therefore is a bug, and therefore they do really need to fix as a priority. So moving on to the more interesting section of this video, kind of things that need to be added to expand upon the current replay system. So one thing that really needs to be added, in my opinion, is the option to minimize this box up here. So if I did a video, say, on this particular game, by the way, I'm going to try and keep the camera on kind of the interesting action, so you've got something to watch whilst I natter. But if I wanted to do a replay, like a cast of this particular game, this box up here doesn't need to be seen by the viewers. And what does that mean? It really means I want the option to be able to minimize all of this and instead manipulate all of these options using hotkeys. This hides all of this unnecessary information and basically allows me to manipulate the game's speed, the perspective, fog of war, all of these options outside of just clicking manually in these boxes. As this is really awkward, this is really clumsy, and it just blocks part of the screen space. Admittedly, some of this, all of the game UI that you can see in a natural game, so all of your elites, all of your doctrines, the map, and these portions here, this is fine to keep in a replay because it gives you information that a viewer might find interesting, or someone just watching their own replays to see how to improve. This is information that is useful. The map particularly, it gives you guys at home, and it gives me, if I was looking to improve, kind of the full view of the map once I've removed the fog of war with this option, and really just enhances my ability to improve gameplay. But this box up here really does not need to exist, particularly like if I was trying to, I mean, I guess for caster purposes it doesn't need to exist, but if you were trying to improve, you won't be too bothered since, you know, no one else is going to be watching but you. But it still does take up like a valuable portion of screen space. So I think adding the option to have another box, just select it, and it removes all of this and kind of defaults it back to hotkeys that you can customize yourself. So you can press, say, A to increase speed, kind of. Actually, A to decrease speed, S, say, to increase speed, D to change player perspective, F to turn off fog of war, you know, F for fog. You know, simple things like that instead of this clumsy box would be really cool and would actually improve the usage of the replay system for kind of content creation. And one other thing, one of the big priorities in removing this box and why that's so important is removing this section here. As you can see, this gives you a very clear indication as to when the game is going to end. At the moment, quite clearly, we're just getting up to around a quarter of the way through the game. But when we get to sort of the second half, it really does give an indication as to which player will win, since at that point, all you have to do is look at who's got the current lead, and yeah, who's most likely to keep that lead, and then, you know, that's unlikely to change in the next 5 or so minutes of that match. And this kind of does spoil the surprise, I guess, of watching a game being casted. So yeah, the first thing that I'd really like to see added to the replay system to straight up improve it would be the ability to remove all this and instead tie all of these casting and replay functionality options to selectable, customizable hotkeys. Now, whilst Relic have still not added customizable hotkeys and maybe won't to the main multiplayer experience, adding this to the replay system, now that should be entirely within their capability and design direction. So, you know, I really can't see any downside to them adding this as a feature, and I think everyone who makes videos for this game would definitely appreciate it. Okay, so moving on, another option that I would really like to see added to the replay system would be the ability to skip back and forth in time. So this is something that pretty much every replay system ever made can do. Currently, if I go up to the options up here, I can slow down the action. As you can see, if we do a little bit of cool zoom in, look at that striking scorpion. Really cool stuff, but you can see that I can't actually go any further back than quarter speed. It doesn't allow me to rewind, essentially. In addition, if I go to the blue box just below this replay kind of section of the interface, if I click on it anywhere, I do not skip to that position in the timeline. So this is not a selectable timeline, it is merely an indication of how far the game has gone through the replay. And essentially this means this box is entirely pointless, other than giving you the ability to perceive whereabouts in the game you are kind of close to finishing. So the option to manipulate this, make this a manipulative kind of timeline, as opposed to an uninteractive just indication, would be really cool, as it would allow just everyone using the replay system to more accurately go back and forth between specific points in action. So this is really important if you're trying to improve as well, not only trying to make videos. So if you're trying to improve and you see that a fight didn't go well, you probably want to go back in time and rewatch it, maybe in slow motion, to see what went wrong. Did you micro wrong? Did you misaim an ability? Did you not macro in the background and reinforce enough? You know, what happened to make you lose that particular fight? And the ability, the functionality in the replay system currently, it's just not there to do that. You have to, if you go past a point in the game, you can't go back to it, which is, again, a little bit bizarre. It's, you know, that's a basic kind of replay system kind of option. At the moment, you can merely slow down the action, so I guess if you get to a what you already know to be a pivotal fight, you could slow down the action and pay attention, but you just can't go back in time. And that's something very basic that, again, adding into the replay system would be pretty important. So another thing that I think I've already covered but really do need to be added, the replay hotkeys. So as I've mentioned, being able to tie all of this, once they've added the option to remove this kind of ugly box here, tying all of those options to keys on your keyboard so that you can, you know, much more discreetly manipulate the video for casting purposes, for content creation purposes, even just for a more visually, you know, pleasing gameplay improvement perspective. Just tying all of that to hotkeys would definitely be something appreciated. So I'm just going to increase the speed to get kind of closer to my next point. So as you can see, I'm just kind of pushing on the shield generator, he's defending, and the whole game he's had a ranger squad just plinking away at mine, but since I'm pressuring his own shield generator with a much larger force than his rangers, I am a-okay, happy to be doing this. And this forward base did me an absolute number this game. I essentially just started churning out knobs and just sticking them here, picking up scrap, and it was pretty hilarious. So I guess I'll move on to the last point. When a replay ends, essentially the game just freezes all functionality of the replay mode, and you have to press quit in order to do anything past that point. You can't, you know, jump around the map, you can't look at the last situation, you know, how did they really lose this game? All of that good stuff that you want to do in any kind of game improvement setting or content creation setting, you can't do any of that. Essentially, the same thing happens when a multiplayer match ends, where the entire game freezes and a box comes up with quit. That's literally what happens. And you can't go back in time, like I've already said. You can't travel across the map and look at what's happening. It's kind of jarring, and it also means that if you were going to do like a tournament for this game, you'd have to immediately transition from the in-game kind of screen to either a casting bench kind of camera, or to, I guess, kind of just the in-game menu with all the elite upgrade things and all the skulls you unlocked for that match, which isn't very pleasing to the eye. You know, what people want to see really is, and by the way, this speed is crazy, but what people really want to see is people kind of looking across the map at the end of the match and seeing the final state of the game. You know, where were the troops positioned? You know, how many resources did each player have? All of these options need to be open for people to really grasp how the game was won. So as you can see, we're nearing the end of the game, so my point will be pretty clear pretty soon. And as you can see, he did make a pretty cool push with a lot of Wraithguard, but when you've got this many knobs, and at this point I do believe I am upgraded with tier 2. Ah, we're here, okay. Yeah, so I was upgraded with like tier 2 infantry weapons and damage, and I had multiple knob squads. But as you can see, the game freezes for all intents and purposes, this is completely uninteractive from this point on. As you can see, I'm clicking on the map, and nothing's coming up, which is extremely annoying. If I was wanting to say, you know, look at my base, see how many buildings I had, where I'd positioned them, to kind of tell the viewers, you know, position your buildings here because this is a good spot. You know, I can't really say that other than point vaguely on the minimap, and do it that way. And I can't look at the opponent's kind of perspective, the box in the top right, which normally lets you switch perspectives of the players and see what tech each of the players have gone for. You know, you can't do that anymore. All of the replay functionality and in-game functionality is gone. And that is, as I said, quite frustrating. The only thing I can do from this point on is select quit. And that's just not enough. I want to be able to move across the map. I want to be able to select buildings, see what upgrades I had at the last points in the game. All of this would be really cool to have. And the only thing I can do now is press quit and leave the replay, which again just sucks. So if they added the ability to kind of go backwards and forwards in time, to manipulate the game post-match, you know, past the point both players have quit, that would be super cool, as it would just kind of allow more advanced just manipulation of the actual replay of the video. On top of this, adding kind of caster hotkeys would be really cool for A, tournaments, and B, I guess less so tournaments, because that's going to be in a live setting, so it'll just be recording the raw footage without the replay. But in the perspective of content creators, having hotkeys would be really, really cool. Now, of course, content creators do have the option of simply recording footage live in-game and then doing commentary after, or I guess doing live commentary. But live commentary not everyone can do, and it also requires you to have a very quiet keyboard and mouse and setup, a really proper setup designed to reduce noise levels, and a mic positioned on a stand and all that good stuff. And the other option of doing commentary post-play in the match, that comes with the issue of not being able to move around the map outside of where your camera was whilst playing the match. And if you've played this game, you will know that you will be dancing your camera between buildings, between, you know, spots on the map where you're frantically telling units to go, and it doesn't actually make for the best viewing experience. So because you're just jumping around so seemingly erratically, whereas if you were playing the game at that moment, you would kind of know why you were jumping to a specific spot and backwards and forwards on the map. So yeah, these additional options to the replay system would be pretty cool. This is the only part of the game that I've noticed that seems to be noticeably threadbare and underdeveloped. The campaign, whilst it's different to Dawn of War 2's, and I'd kind of disagree with the decision to have no autosaves, you know, that's kind of very well done. The cutscenes, the voice acting, the story, it's all really cool. The multiplayer, again, really well developed, really fun and enjoyable, an absolute blast. I have gotten nowhere near being bored of it yet, which is absolutely awesome for my 40k fix. And then you've got the replay system, which is just, it's lacking some basic functionality, which would be quite cool to see added in future patches. So coming up within the next month or so, from what the developers have said, we can expect a ranked matchmaking patch, I suppose, or update. And with that patch, maybe they will tweak the replay system, since it's possible that the replay system was one of the last features that they worked on when they developed this game. Which is kind of understandable, because it's not the main game, not everyone will use it, but even so, it's a feature in your game, so the developers do have some responsibility to make sure that it is functional and usable and pleasant to the touch. So yeah, that's really been my feedback video for Dawn of War 3's replay system. It's usable, but definitely needs more features and functionality added to make it a pleasant feature. So as always, guys, thank you for watching. Hopefully this was useful, and more Dawn of War 3 coverage coming up soon. Ta-ta.